In this first episode of Chasing Adventure, we drive into the heart of the Pilbara region of Western Australia. We check out some history along the way and cross more river crossings than we can count. We cook up some great meals, hike rugged gorges and find some of the best camping that Western Australia has to offer. G'day guys, and welcome to a trip series. In this series we are travelling and exploring the Pilbara region of Western Australia. We're going to be trying to look at some of the more less visited or less touristy areas of the region and see what we can find. Now unfortunately the family couldn't join me on this trip, but I do have my dad riding in the passenger seat of the Land Cruiser, and we're meeting up with some friends and family along the way to travel with us and explore this region. Now we can see here we are camped in the middle of nowhere in this wide open landscape that is the Pilbara, just shy of Newman. We've spent the last couple of days taking our time travelling up from the south of WA. Yesterday we headed out to a mining ghost town about 30 kilometres west of the town site of Kew. This town serviced the once booming Big Bell mine in the early 1900s, and there is no doubt the biggest attraction here today is the Big Bell Hotel, which still stands. The hotel was opened in 1937 and was famous for its curved balustrades and the longest bar in Australia at the time. The townsite's population peaked in 1951 with the surge of gold mining activity, but was relatively short-lived, and the mine closed in 1955 to see a rapid decline in the population and condition. So for today we are already all packed up. We're going to hit the road, drive the last 100 or so K to Newman, stock up, and we're going to hit some of those attractions around the area. So let's jump on in and get going. Finishing the drive off to Newman provides red, rich and barren landscapes that spans for as far as the eye can see. It may be ordinary for some, but this land holds its own type of beauty. Newman is a small and modern mining town, containing a population of about 4,500 people and is fueled from the iron ore mined in and around the town site. So we've made it to Newman, we've done a few things, got some extra fuel, stocked up on some supplies that we forgot to load up in Perth, and had a shower, so we're looking better and smelling better as well. But we've also got all of our permits and paperwork to head out to Kalgan Pool, so we're going to start that drive now and we'll see you out there. Kalgan's Pool is a well-known local swimming hole in the area, and it's also the meeting point for our convoy on this trip. A short drive on the blacktop before turning down a gravel track, we opted to lower our tyre pressures early on to avoid track damage and provide some mechanical sympathy. The track to Kalgan's Pool starts off easily, a graded road becoming slightly narrower and narrower, turning into an easy four-wheel drive track before the fun really begins. Nearby mines use a process called dewatering to remove groundwater from their sites and pump them up into this area of the Kalgan River. This means that this area of the track is covered underwater 365 days of the year and provides a whole lot of four-wheel driving fun, not to mention a stark contrast to the dry riverbed I visited back in 2014. There are numerous crossings to complete before reaching Kalgan's Pool, some very long in length like this first one, and some only short. Although they can be up to knee deep, the base is firm and rocky, providing a high traction surface and confidence that we won't get bogged. A steady right foot in low range four-wheel drive provides a comfortable and easy ride in. Navigating a rocky riverbed and we arrive at the final destination. So we made it here down to Kalgan's pool. Not as much water as expecting, but that track was sure a whole lot of fun. A few nervous moments, not necessarily for the four-wheel drive, but for the drone. There was a few sections there where we had a few almost near misses with the drone there, but we've got some sausages getting cooked up for a bit of a late lunch, and this is where we're going to call camp for the night. So we've got one other couple on the other side of the water there, and now I'm going to try and embarrass myself by setting up a hammock between these two trees, so we'll see how that goes. It doesn't get much better than this. High 20-degree temperatures on a nice sunny day in the Pilbara, looking across Kalgan's pool is the perfect way to start this trip. I wasn't able to relax for long though before heading back through the track to escort the next vehicle of the convoy through. My Uncle Graham and my Auntie Rosemary, although driving an identical 2015 Toyota Land Cruiser 200 Series Sahara, are relatively new to forward driving, and not having much experience with water crossings, I can understand the hesitation. Despite a lack of phone reception out here, I made good time and they were only waiting for about 10 minutes prior to my arrival. Watching the exploring Oz cruiser wade through the windy crossings was all the inspiration they needed. Graham and Rosemary may be relatively new to four-wheel driving, but this trip was going to provide plenty of new experiences and four-wheel drive tracks to entertain even the most seasoned traveller. Now let's not forget that they are also towing a 2021 track trailer T-van, which they are living out of full time. A trailer that exceeded my expectations time and time again over the coming weeks. Time to finish setting up and enjoy the sunset over this rugged landscape. For any of you that have watched any of my previous trip videos know that I'm not much of a chef when it comes to camp cooking, but this trip I'm trying to make the effort to make a few more meals and broaden my horizons. So this trip, or tonight in particular, we're going to be cooking some fireside nachos. So we're going to be wrapping up some nacho chips and some beans, sauce, salsa and the like here, putting them by the fire in some alcohol and seeing how they turned out. So let's get onto it and see how we go. Still a very basic meal, but it offers something different to the plain old steak and sausages. Just a matter of piling up some nacho chips, some shredded cooked chicken, beans, crushed tomatoes, fresh chili, salsa sauce, spring onion and cheese. We wrap the foil to create a baking tray, and I'd recommend double or triple layering the foil to make sure it doesn't tear in the coals. Time to sit back around the fire and enjoy our first night in the Pilbara outback. The next day we were greeted by an extremely still and silent bush camp. My friend Tom had arrived late last night in his 76 Series Land Cruiser and camper trailer and would be coming along with us for the next 3 weeks. So it's day 4 and we've woken up to another perfect morning here at Kalgan Pool. We've walked just a couple of 100 metres down this dry riverbed from camp, and we can see the contrast that we see here in the Pilbara region. We've got this deep red rock as the sun hits it right up against that blue sky, and we've got the sun coming through those nice green leaves and striking these massive white gums out on the side of the riverbed, and it's just something that you don't see anywhere else, and something that makes this place very special. So we're going to head back to camp. We're going to start packing up. We're going to go for a little bit of a drive to a lookout this morning without the trailers, and then we're going to start making our way to another location just outside of Newman. The camp's all packed up. We're just heading down a four-wheel drive track quickly without the trailers. We left them at camp just for a quick lookout over Kalgan's pool before picking the trailers up, heading back through Newman to another place, and we'll see how we go there. With views like this, I think it's easy to see why the Pilbara region is fast becoming one of my favourite camping destinations in Western Australia. After a look around, it was time to start making our way back down the rocky and steep lookout hill to collect the trailers. Once we were all hooked up, it was time to wade through those river crossings to head back out. Back onto the highway and back into Newman for fuel and a couple of last minute supplies. Again. Back in Newman again, we've left Kalgan's pool this morning and now we're going to be heading west out of Newman to head to a place called Weeli Wolli Springs. Not entirely sure how good the track is. We've heard there's some deep water crossings, but we're just going to see how we go with the trailers, and if we can't get all the way, we'll camp up where we can. And we'll see how we go. But the electrical issues on the cruiser keep continuing and growing, so we've lost all control or all power to the Victron battery monitor system, so I have no idea how much power is coming in or coming out of the lithium auxiliary battery under the engine bay. We've also lost all power to the EMU wing system. A bit of a strange issue going on there. I'm going to have to look at it a bit later, but we've got no power to the battery chargers, the inverter, the water tank gauge, or even the water pump. So I've had to jimmy up a bit of a wiring loom, a temporary wiring loom, to have the water pump work. And in addition to that, this morning we've had the air compressor circuit go down as well. So although the air compressor is still working with the paddle switches here and still turns on, we don't have the power through the switch, which means we can't fill that 4-litre tank and fill our tyres. So unfortunately, I'm going to be relying on the other cars in the convoy to help me up with the pumping up of the tyres. But yeah, a bit disappointing with how much money you spend on these systems, but it's so be it. The trip goes on, and I'm sure we're going to be looking forward to some great tracks this afternoon, hopefully along with another great camp. The route out to Weeli Wolli Springs starts off well, a large, wide and graded gravel road with frequent mining traffic. But it is not long before this track deteriorates into a narrow, winding and rocky track where deflating the tyres is definitely recommended for both track care and traction, along with ride comfort. Weeli Wolli Springs shares the same dewatering process from the mines as Kalgan's pool did. However, in this instance, we are able to view exactly where that water enters what would normally be a dry riverbed. There is a small viewing platform and lunch stop at this location, however, unfortunately, it was closed due to maintenance on our visit. The water is pushed through at an impressive rate and the humidity can be felt in the area given the warmer temperatures. The water forms a path down into and along the river and creates 5 water crossings for us to navigate to get to our campsite. first is relatively easy, a low water level and a rocky base with 2 small steps, and it wasn't long before we made our way over.
Wasn't too bad.
The second river crossing, however, is a little more daunting. There is only one single path through, and this crossing is much deeper than the first. My dad volunteered to walk the track first, and I got the cruiser ready for the plunge. A relatively firm base gave the others enough confidence to give it a go with the trailers in tow. In the 200 series Land Cruisers, we were using second gear, low range, center diff lock engaged, and on the rock mode traction control setting, which seemed to work well for both the vehicle only and towing. The next 2 crossings were simple and straightforward, with this crossing requiring a tight left-hand turn midway to take the higher tracks. The last crossing providing a very picturesque setting as the sun begins to lower in the sky. we've come a fair way down the Weeli Wolli track now, following that creek line. I mean, man, there's some awesome four-wheel driving down here, but it seems like the track might veer away from it now. So instead of driving it for kilometers and kilometers on end, we're going to quickly stick the drone up, do a bit of reconnaissance from the air, see how we go, and that will decide whereabouts we camp and where we stop tonight.
Feels like it though. Must be a mine nearby. Yeah, a lot of mine activity.
The drone's not only providing an awesome video from the sky, but can also come in handy to get a real-time view of the area and possible tracks leading to hard to get to or hidden campsites. In this case, the track veered away from the river, and this was corroborated by our GPS units. Disregard. We'll head back.
Okay, Nathan is suggesting that we turn around and head back, and we'll pull up anywhere we feel like camping.
We're lying there on the bed above the sheets. No one's saying a word, but I can feel your heartbeat. I stare into your eyes and you into mine, lying perfectly still, like we are frozen in time. I don't want this to be over, don't want the morning to come. My head upon your shoulder, wishing that you would say, I think you should say.
A relatively simple pad thai for dinner tonight. Fried onion, chicken, with some rice noodles cooking on the side, adding a couple of beaten eggs before adding the noodles, spring onions, and of course pad thai sauce. Not the most traditional camping meal, but enough to feed a few hungry campers. Waking up at about 5:30 AM and staring out into the landscape from my swag, and I couldn't resist the early morning get-ups when we are camped in scenery like this. This had to be one of the best campsites of the trip and potentially one of the best inland camps of Western Australia. It was a late morning pottering around camp before I used the drone to do some recon on a nearby gorge. I decided to lead a hike up into the gorge, and although it started a little thick, it soon opened up into some great country. We found this little cave along the way, which would be the perfect escape from the heat in the midst of the summer months, and there was plenty of evidence of reptiles lurking around. We continued on a short distance until we couldn't any further. We backtracked a little way and climbed our way out of the gorge and up onto the peak of a nearby mountain. Seeing this from the drone is great, but there is nothing like experiencing places like this in person. The videos and photos will never do it justice, so make sure you add this place to your Pilbara visit. We returned to camp for a late lunch of grilled cheese hot dogs and relaxed in the water for another afternoon of soaking up everything this environment had to offer. Coming up in the next episode. We're going to head back out, go through those river crossings that we came in on. We received very specific information regarding this crossing before we left Newman, and that was to stay out of the centre. Why? Well, because of this. A whole lot of water comes through the passenger side dash here down onto the footwell, and I can also hear the blower of the aircon sort of hit some water there. It's made a bit of a funny sound, but now what I've got is very little aircon coming through the vents, and I had a few other lights flashing as well. So we enter into some very remote country and find ourselves backtracking on some gnarly four-wheel drive tracks in the dark. Arriving at camp in night can be difficult, but it also means that it's harder to visualize the landscape around you. We picked a spot away from other campers and we hoped for the best, and this was what we woke up to.
I make no promises to the quality of the food at the end of this though. It's my first time doing it.
Great camps, big fires, wet and windy weather and flat batteries. We're waking up this morning and what a contrast. We've got wet and windy weather this morning, blowing everything around and putting moisture over all of our gear. Another thing we have noticed is that we're completely out of battery power. Because we've been sitting here for 2 days now, we haven't had any solar input at all. Actually switched it off, which means that the red arc system isn't recognising the second battery at all. So what we're going to have to do is just put a little bit of charge into this secondary battery, get that voltage up, the red arc will pick it up, and then we can start charging that secondary battery. We'll see you next time on Exploring Oz.